Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a tale that's sweeter than a candy cane but twice as fizzy. The unlikely transformation of Santa Claus, and how a certain beverage managed to put a jolly spin on his beard and belly. This isn't your commercialised Christmas story filled with oversized elves and sugar highs. We're talking about the story of Santa, not just as a gift giver, but as a global icon who can probably chug an entire 2 litre of soda in under 5 seconds. So before we slide down this slippery slope of holiday cheer, do me a solid, like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a little comment about your favourite Christmas treat, or where you're listening from. It's always fascinating to see who's tuning in, even if you are half watching while spooning marshmallows into your hot cocoa. Now, dim the lights, crank up that fan for a light chill, because we know Santa's making his rounds, and get comfortable. So tell me, have you ever wondered what Santa's list really looks like? How much coal does he actually carry? Would he prefer cookies or something healthier after a long night? Did he ever think of going vegan? And what if that Coca Cola hadn't shown up? Would he still be out there with a twinkle in his eye? Or would we have a wrestling Santa with kale-wrapped presents? Alright, congratulations. You've just woken up in the 1930s. The air smells like sugar, pine, and a sprinkling of something suspicious. Buckle up for an unexpected sleigh ride. Welcome to a time before jingle bells and mull Santas, when St. Nicholas was just a kind-hearted bishop in Myra, bringing goodness to the children like a medieval Oprah. Picture him dressed in robes, handing out gold coins while the townsfolk cheered and nobody knew what a credit card was. This was the 4th century, a time when clothing styles were dictated less by fashion and more by the subtle art of not freezing to death. St. Nick wasn't exactly soaring through the skies with a sack full of gifts, more like sliding down cobblestone roads with what could only be described as a not-so-sleek donation bag. Can you imagine living in a world where the closest thing you had to the internet was when someone knocked on your door asking if you'd heard the good word? It was a simpler time when gossip travelled at the speed of an ageing snail. But amidst all the gossip, Nicholas stood out, like perhaps the only car without a bumper sticker in a parking lot full of them. Tales of his generosity spread faster than the local baker's new loaf of sourdough, mostly because everyone was just so hungry for miracles. That's right, he was known for gifting gold coins to the needy, which was as revolutionary as throwing a surprise party in a hermit's cave. Now let's talk about that gold, because we're not talking about Bitcoin here. We're talking about actual shiny coins that would make Mr. Scrooge McDuck jealous. Legend has it that he tossed these coins into open windows to help poor families with dowries so their daughters could get married. Talk about a medieval matchmaker. He was essentially the first pro to understand that a little generosity goes a long way, and let's be honest, no one can throw a surprise wedding or gift-softened gold like he could. Think of him as the original Santa with a side hustle going on. Of course, like every good story, the rise to fame had its complications. Nicholas's life was also punctuated by actual tragedies. He lived through harsh conditions, political turmoil, and an empire determined to make saints out of high-profile individuals for the sake of power. This means our boy Nick had a full plate of work alongside his charity. He somehow managed to remain a calm harbour amidst a storm, doing everything from rescuing drowning sailors to a heroic rescue of 3 unjustly jailed men. Talk about a medieval superhero. He certainly wasn't signing autographs for the pure fame of it. Fast forward a few centuries and you'd find that old St. Nick had morphed into something of a legend, less like a local bishop and more like a festive icon. By this point his mythos had gone viral, circulating in communities like a feel-good meme. He was the original social media influencer, with tales of miraculous deeds that somehow managed to get embellished almost as fast as the carolers could sing. And with this new fame came the need for a visual representation. Enter the depictions of good old Nick as a rotund gentleman, complete with a nicely trimmed beard. which was proof that giving generously forges a kind soul and a fantastic grooming routine. Art dropped in as an antiquated form of marketing. Think of early versions of Instagram where your social presence was indicated through portraits in churches. What would St. Nick think of his painted likeness gracing everything from holiday cards to Netflix specials? Probably a good chuckle or two, a man of humility, even while becoming an oversized holiday figure. This rapid transformation didn't stop at bodily aesthetics, but also stretched into his gift-giving nature. Tales of his philanthropy started to shift into whimsical stories. By the time he paved the way for Santa, gifts started resembling not just golden coins, but toys crafted by elves. Not that the elves would skillfully employ themselves in mass production, without a little bit of holiday spirit and a sprinkle of Coca Cola magic, but that's a tale for another time. By the end of it all, even as the stories morphed and his image got stickier than a well-placed candy cane, Nicholas became the patron saint not just of children, but of sailors, merchants, and a good majority of those who found themselves in desperate need of a little extra holiday cheer. Imagine the modern-day equivalent. Nicholas would be the guy leading workshops on the most efficient cookie baking practices while subtly running the biggest philanthropic organisation in history. And remember, every jingle bell you hear echoes a medieval saint desperately flinging gifts toward those who needed hope most. Back when Christmas was less of a shopping spree and more of a heartfelt wish. Before they became Santa's personal shop crew, elves were scribes, or possibly just short humans who were too excited about Christmas. In this segment, we'll unravel the mystical transformation from grumpy little helpers to the euphoric, sugar-rushed companions of Santa, all while debating how many of them it takes to change a light bulb. Spoiler alert, the answer is still unknown, mainly because they can't reach the light bulb without a stepladder that wobble like their sugar crash-induced sanity. Let's rewind the clock to a time when elves weren't merely the cheerful beings who giggle over scrolls and gift wrap. Picture a land where elves were the custodians of ancient knowledge, scribes copying manuscripts in dimly lit forests, possibly while adorned in mismatched socks that would make your grandmother cry. And yet, somewhere along the line, they traded their quills for toy-making tools, transforming from quiet scribes into the motivational speakers of the North Pole, armed with nothing but mugs of cocoa and an endearing urge to spread cheer, max caffeine consumption included. But how did this transition happen? You've got to wonder what went down at one fateful meeting of elves, perhaps circulating a quirky draft of Elf the Musical that changed everything. There's also the possibility that one too many cookie breaks led to their spontaneous adoption of all things festive, flipping a switch in their tiny brains where Sugar High became their middle name. Suddenly they went from crafting fine literature to fashioning toys with the finesse of an artisan, while somehow maintaining the joy of kids that have just hit a piñata filled with gummy bears. The dark underbelly of the North Pole Workshop. It's a caffeinated chorus of sugar-fueled chaos, where productivity meets pandemonium. Ever heard of the first elf union meeting where one elf stood up and proclaimed, "Why are we calling ourselves helpers when we could just be Christmas?" Of course, the punchlines were endless, with quips like, "Because if we used Christmas as our job title, we'd need to be paid in fruitcake, and nobody wants that responsibility." And thus began their rise to stardom, led by an unyielding ambition to claim the holiday spirit as their own, steering clear of the naysayers who thought they were just a myth. Sorry, non-believers, the elves can probably hear your refusal to accept their fluorescent green hats, even if your inner child thinks they're adorable. But it's not all spunky jingles and bright-eyed shenanigans. Let's talk about the responsibilities of these holiday minions. Who knew that making the perfect teddy bear required an eye for fabric patterns that would likely put haute couture designers to shame? It's like the elves were pulling off a craft project that would impress Martha Stewart, armed with glitter scissors and an unending supply of elf magic, which honestly sounds like a euphemism for caffeine runs. Meanwhile, the transformation continues as they embrace not just their potential, but also a touch of holiday spirit that rivals even the most enthusiastic Black Friday shopper. You might not have noticed, but the elves now come with jumpstart buttons for joy, somehow landing everything on Santa's list perfectly on time. They wield magical hammers instead of regular ones, swinging them not for hammering but rather for morale boosting, with a side of dance moves that make you rethink your own treadmill routine. Picture a workshop where the shelves are filled with Tickle Me Elmo-esque joy instead of just the usual wrenches and screws. Now, let's not forget about elf names. Yes, every elf has one, and they could definitely win a contest for the cutest monikers. Twinkle, Sparkle and Bubbles are just some of the heavier hitters. It's as if the North Pole gave out name badges instead of simply opting for, "Hey, I'm just your average elf, forget it." You now have a team whose sole purpose is to make festive magic happen, probably on speed dial with 3 different sugar cookie recipes. They don't just make toys anymore, they create joy, wrapping each one in a bow of delightful charm and a tiny handwritten tag that reads, "Made with love and a sprinkle of chaos." So, as we continue exploring the joyous evolution of Santa's little helpers, remember this: they didn't just show up to work one day thinking they could break into the toy industry. Instead, they discovered something peculiar along the way. Every giggle, every conflict with a piece of wrapping paper that resulted in chaos, they made a choice to live the spirit of Christmas. Whether it was the shimmer of festive lights or the sound of jingling bells, these elves changed the course of holiday history, one joyful laugh at a time, turning themselves from scribes to the world's most beloved holiday icons. Who wouldn't want a piece of that cheer? They went from being the ignored cousins of folklore to the stars of the holiday show, armed with determined smiles, mismatched socks, and all the Christmas spirit this side of the North Pole. Let's talk about the fizzy drink that reshaped the North Pole. Coca Cola didn't just make a beverage, they crafted an image. Suddenly, the plump man in the red suit was linked with sugar, and not just the traditional brown sack of toys. But what if he'd preferred something stronger, like a mulled wine? For centuries, Santa had been living his life with a rustic charm, rolling through town on his sleigh, delivering gifts on a reindeer-powered ride powered by oats and goodwill. But he wasn't getting any younger. The 1930s rolled around, and suddenly it seemed like the universe decided that Santa needed a makeover. Think less jolly old elf, and more brand ambassador for all things festive and fizzy. Coca Cola was looking to brighten its image during the Great Depression, and who better to partner with than Santa Claus himself? They whipped up an advertising campaign that was smoother than Santa's sleigh gliding over unbaked cookies. Picture this: jolly old Saint Nick, with rosy cheeks and a belly that jiggled like a bowl full of jelly, cozied up next to a bottle of the bubbling goodness. Marketing genius, right? It was as if the North Pole and Main Street merged into a commercial wonderland peppered with snowflakes, all thanks to a magical syrup. Now, imagine for a moment, what if Santa had stuck to his old ways? What if images of him lurking behind a mug of steaming cider or a glass of fortified wine had become mainstream? Ho, 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 could have transformed into, would you like a drink? Imagine the jingle bells replaced with clinking glasses, better than a crowded Christmas office party. Would Santa have traded in his sleigh for a stylish vintage sedan to drive around delivering gifts? Probably not. He'd be too busy organising a very merry holiday gathering at a shady tavern instead. But let's get back to that marketing campaign, shall we? Coca Cola didn't just introduce an opportunity for Santa to sip on syrupy delights. They enveloped their campaign in warmth that radiated holiday cheer. The imagery was so good that even children started to think the only missing ingredient in their holiday cheer was an ice-cold Coca Cola waiting on the mantel, just in case Santa wanted a little refreshment after clambering down the chimney. Don't forget, it's not just about being good, it's about being refreshingly good. As Santa sipped his fizzy treat, we can only speculate the conversations brewing between him and Mrs. Claus. "Dear, are you sure you don't want to cut back on the cookies?" Mrs. Claus might have said, a hint of concern in her voice as Santa playfully rolled his eyes, puffing up his belly, likely saying, "They never let me down." Little did they know that the sugar flood would soon have consequences. Will Santa need to trade in his flying sleigh for a health seminar or a trip to reindeer aerobics? One can only imagine. Fast forward to the holiday season of today, and Santa's sleek new image has infiltrated every mall, department store and Instagram feed. Each year you can barely scroll through your phone without seeing Santa posing with his holiday goodwill and a can of Coca Cola. It's as if he's become some sort of festively chubby brand ambassador more than just the bringer of toys. There's even a Santa parody song about his obsession with fizzy drinks floating around. Jingle cans, all the way, an earworm that could haunt the most joyful party plunge. And as every glass of Coca-Cola is poured at holiday parties, one has to wonder, are the festive spirits truly embodied in that fizzy goodness? Or are we merely aiding in the rebranding of a jolly old fellow who never truly asked for any of this? Santa was the hero we needed, not the one we deserved. But here he is, anointed by marketing gods, guzzling sugar like a holiday rock star. In the end, Coca-Cola didn't just ensure Santa's belly was filled with comfort. They filled our hearts with that sacred blend of nostalgia and commercialization. So, as Christmas draws near, and you feel your sugar levels rising, raise your glass in honour of your favourite multinational beverage and the stout icon it introduced to a new generation. Because who doesn't want to think of Santa, not just as a gift giver, but as the embodiment of holiday cheer in a sparkling can? To think, all this started with a simple drink. Who invited that shiny-nosed reindeer to the party? Was he a social misfit or simply misunderstood? We delve into the origin story of Rudolph, one of Santa's greatest marketing successes. Spoiler, it involved more glitter than your ex's dance moves at last year's Christmas party. It all started back in the mind-melting year of 1939, when a man named Robert L. May, who was working for Montgomery Ward, was tasked with creating a Christmas story to be given away as a promotional gift. Quite the hustle plan if you think about it. Imagine the pitch. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a reindeer, but not just any reindeer. This one's got nose bright enough to work as a traffic signal. Now, visualise the scene. May sitting in a cosy office, perhaps snacking on some stale Christmas cookies, with a half-deflated Santa balloon drooping in the corner. He needed a hero who could stand out in a reindeer herd, populated by the likes of Dasher, Dancer and Prancer. A crowd that sure didn't know the meaning of being different. So what's a guy to do? When life hands you a herd of perfectly ordinary reindeer, you create a narrative twist so big it could knock over the North Pole. Enter Rudolph, the awkward outcast who just wanted to be accepted. As the story unspooled, we learned that poor Rudolph had a nose that glowed like a beacon, perfect for navigating in a blizzard, but less so for making friends. He was the kid at a school dance who excels in math, but stumbles over his own feet when asked to bust a move. The other reindeer teased him mercilessly, perhaps forming a group known as the Buffoons. Not an official name, but it has a nice ring to it. Now, let's pause for a moment and look at the parallels. Isn't this resonant of the awkward phases we all suffer through? Remember when you embarrassingly mispronounced that fancy wine at a dinner party, or your attempt at the latest TikTok dance went viral, but not for the reasons you intended. Rudolph embodied all those moments, the relatable cringe that springs from being too different in a world that celebrates conformity. Rudolph's saving grace came one fateful, foggy Christmas Eve. Santa faced a dilemma. His merry sleighing plans were about to be disrupted because the weather was worse than your aunt's attempt at pie crust. He needed a way to guide his sleigh, and voila. Who else but the glow-in-the-dark reindeer himself? In a moment of pure cinematic splendour, when Santa declared that, "Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" it marked the reindeer's ultimate redemption. Almost as if the toy companies had all simultaneously agreed to release glitter-filled confetti in celebration. But did you know that Rudolph was initially rejected by some? The story was released as a booklet, but it wasn't until 1949, when Gene Autry gifted us the catchy Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer song, that this little guy truly found his stride. Who knew that a catchy tune could turn a humble reindeer tale into a Christmas classic? Did May and Autry discuss branding over eggnog, or was there an epic brainstorming battle that burst from the North Pole? As Rudolph rode into prominence, something remarkable happened. He became not just a character in a story or a shiny-nosed cash cow. He transitioned into a multifaceted emblem of perseverance and hope. Can we pause for a second to appreciate that he practically traded in his misfit label for one reading inspiration and icon? By the time Rudolph's story hit the screens with the stop-motion animated special, we all collectively let out a sigh of joy that spanned decades. In today's media landscape, Rudolph serves as a beacon to those who feel out of place, reminding us that it's perfectly okay to be different. To this day, we gather every holiday season, anxiously awaiting his path to glory across our screens and looking back at his triumph. So while you're hanging the tinsel or drinking that suspiciously strong eggnog, glow brightly, just like Rudolph. Because if that glowing-nosed reindeer can embrace his uniqueness and steer Santa's sleigh, so can you. Imagine if Santa's list were more like a public social media feed instead of a private ledger. How would kids handle knowing that their digital footprint went stratospheric with one naughty deed? We'll discuss the implications of Santa's list in a modern context, complete with hashtags and emojis. So picture it. A platform called Kris Kringle's Log, where every misdeed is recorded faster than your last viral tweet. A kid pulls the cat's tail and BAM! There's a notification. Timmy J D23 is now on the naughty list. Naughty list. Cat cruelty. The whole school is watching as poor Timmy tries to explain that it was just an experiment in feline physics. But here's the kicker. Santa himself isn't just a whimsical figure. He's got a full marketing team. You can bet there's a digital rights elf updating his feeds with witty memes about kid behaviour in real time. Ever seen your buddy's name pop up on your Santa's naughty list? Yikes, they'd post, accompanied by a cheerful Santa gif and some emojis that would make even the grumpiest parent crack a smile. Next, let's throw in a layer of parental panic. Imagine the holiday conversations. Eli, we have to talk about your TikTok videos. Yes, the ones where you pretended to be Santa reacting to you while you threw your broccoli on the floor. Seriously, you do realise that video might have gone viral, right? There's Eli, spooked, frantically scrubbing his screen like it's a medieval plague. He knows deep down that social media is forever, unlike the fleeting joy of candy canes. Now, consider how kids might attempt to game the system. You've got little Sophia crafting elaborate nice posts, complete with staged photos of herself helping an elderly neighbour cross the street, while secretly filming it in the hopes of getting views. Trust me, nothing screams, "I'm definitely nice," more than a meticulously timed selfie harmonising with Jingle Bell Rock. And don't be surprised when you see her new hashtag, Santa approves. On the flip side, think about how the naughty list would be treated in school. A badge of shame? or the ultimate badge of honour. There would be after-school meetings, clubs devoted to Bad Behaviour 101 and the worst part. Group refrains of, "You could easily get back on the niece list by next year." Right. Like, this isn't just another scheme to keep the holiday cheery while kids write it off as nonsense. As we explore this social media dystopia, you have to remember, Santa is not just a figure of joy. He's a giant looming icon of accountability. Every action suddenly pulsates with a tinge of a morality tale. Is Billy still trying to engage in snowball fights without asking? Cue the Twitter uproar. Oh! Billy's slipping down into the dark side. The next thing you know, there's a viral dance challenge spurred by the idea of nose-thumbing Santa. But if we're being honest, it could also be a teachable moment. Hey kids, let's gather around the virtual fireplace and have a chat. Santa, live streaming from the North Pole, would drop some wisdom bombs. Listen, mischief and fun can coexist with kindness, unless you're an elf on a shelf getting melted down for battery energy drinks. Everyone laughs nervously while those elves nod in agreement. Ultimately, what this Naughty List 2.0 teaches is that being nice isn't just about a shiny ledger. It's about interactions, the good, the bad, and the goofy. No pressure. What better way to bring together communities than through a social media experiment, right? So, what's the takeaway? Perhaps Santa's legacy might just hinge upon how well we blend tradition with modern life's absurdities. From soda-fueled sleigh rides to #mischief, there's enough humour and relatability in Santa's world to ensure we're all laughing while learning. Now imagine logging onto social media and seeing your name at the top of the niece list with a bunch of likes and shares. That might just be the holiday spirit we need, tapping into technology without losing sight of joy, laughter and community. And honestly, if we can throw in some cheerful commentary and a few emojis, we might just redefine the concept of naughty and nice, all while staring into that digital abyss. A place full of child labour laws and holiday cheer. Let's peel back the glitter and see just what it looks like in Santa's workshop. Are the elves on a union break? Should they really be working double shifts in the most labour-intensive business of the year? Picture this. A bustling workshop nestled under the northern lights, surrounded by a forest of evergreens that probably needs a slight pruning. The bright red walls are practically glowing with festive paint, but behind that cheery facade there's a different kind of story brewing. Imagine stepping through the arched door into Santa's factory of miracles, where the elves seem to be whirring around non-stop, manically crafting toys that not only fly off the shelves, but also come with an expectation to be lovingly appreciated by children worldwide. Sure, it sounds magical, but have you ever wondered what's really going on at the North Pole? Do the elves have dental plans? Do they even have any rights besides the right to be jolly? There they go, churning out plush reindeer, glittery dolls and mind-boggling gadgets, all the while buzzing with an unsettling mix of joy and desperation. The workshop produces more toys in one season than a bustling mall can sell in a year. Yet happy elvish labour laws seem to have been lost in the holiday rush. It's like a capitalist winter wonderland. I can just picture Santa shouting, "More toys! Fewer breaks!" with his rosy cheeks puffing like a kettle about to blow. But let's think practically for a moment. Where's the restroom? Elves can't be working double shifts without some really nifty breaks. One can only imagine the chaos that ensues when, mid-song, one of our pint-sized buddies has to sprint across a snowy tundra for a much-needed bathroom break. It's a logistical nightmare wrapped in an adorable red and green package. As we zoom in closer, spot the dozen or so elves working on the assembly line. They're hammering sleigh parts and stitching toys with an efficiency that could lead you to believe they might be part-time robots. And let's not even get started on the questionable health and safety standards here. Sharp tools, dangerous machinery, and no OSHA regulations in sight. It's like a medieval workshop, but with more holiday spirit and slightly less chance of falling into a pit of despair. But while we're on the subject, what happens when one of those elves pulls a muscle or accidentally gets crushed by a runaway toy train? Who handles health insurance? Hey Santa, how about a pay raise so I can afford a proper doctor instead of relying on those elf remedies? You know the ones, a splash of peppermint oil and a shot of eggnog. Sounds like a solid plan until you realise it's actually just festive placebo. Isn't it ironic that sleigh bells ring and it sounds like the sound of your elf homies getting a dodgy back relief? There's also the question of wages. I mean, can someone please get these hard-working elves a decent paycheck? The North Pole is officially elf-friendly with a pay negotiation. How much do you pay your elves? A handful of candy canes and a free toy. Next thing you know, they'll unionise, demanding a living wage and a decent coffee machine. Because who can muster the holiday spirit without good caffeine? The holiday franticness could eventually turn dark if this craziness continues. Imagine it. One evening, the elves band together, fueled by an insane caffeine high from the bottomless mugs of cocoa. Suddenly the workshop turns into a real-life version of the Hunger Games. We demand tea time or it's the toy production floor for you, Santa. Oh, will Santa then burst into his surprised yet concerned face, clutching a snow globe, half distracted by the oncoming uprising? Would the Force One be made ahead of that union? And what about their night shifts that go beyond elf approved? Doesn't sound safe, does it? Is it going to be the elvish agenda for taking care of business, or the elven rave every other night? In the end, it seems like Santa's sleigh is flying dangerously close to labour law violation territory. After all, without a solid structure to support those little hands, Christmas might just transform into a never-ending Toy Story adventure gone horribly wrong. So as you cozy up with your favourite holiday snack, take a minute to think about the hard-working elves grinding away under twinkling lights, and whether they could sneak a little me time into their busy schedule. Because whether they like it or not, the elves could very well be the unsung heroes behind the magic of Christmas. And maybe they deserve some festive rights too. The sleigh. A classic, albeit slightly impractical form of transportation. Let's explore ridiculous alternatives that could have been used instead, like a pogo stick or maybe even a hoverboard. Because Santa has to keep up with modern technology, right? Picture this. Santa bouncing through the air on a pogo stick with that familiar round belly desperately trying to keep up with the rhythm. You'd think holiday tunes would play in the background, but instead it's the sound of squeaky springs punctuating the night air. Every bounce brings me closer to a concussion, Santa might exclaim, eliciting more than a few raised eyebrows and giggles from chimneys below. Now, before we sail too far down this absurdity, let's take a moment to imagine what other methods of transportation could have made their way into Santa's life. What about a unicycle? Who wouldn't want to see Santa juggling cookies while delivering gifts? Visions of him teetering on one wheel while yelling, "Ho, ho, ho, whoops," would be enough to send kids running to the windows for a good laugh, instead of rushing to bed. And don't even get me started on skateboards. Why should Santa let gravity dictate his awe-inspiring gift-giving? A skateboard decked out with candy cane wheels and twinkling lights would revolutionise not just Christmas, but the entire concept of gift delivery. Imagine him cruising smoothly down rooftops, performing tricks that would make extreme sports enthusiasts weep with envy. "Watch out, kids," he could yell amid shreds of laughter. "I'm wrapping up the high-flying gift game." But alas, we witness Santa's steadfast dedication to that good old-fashioned sleigh. That hefty wooden sled with all its bells and whistles, literally. But what if Santa had opted for something more, shall we say, retro? A horse-drawn carriage adorned with colourful streamers, because nothing screams Christmas quite like unintended entanglement with low-hanging branches and spraying reindeer droppings. Imagine the scenarios. Picture him bouncing down the street, trying to answer letters from littered children while a mischievous elf attempts to keep the reindeer steady. "Olive, stop nibbling on that twig!" Let's divert our gaze to futuristic options then. A jetpack. Santa soaring through the sky, gleefully defying wind resistance as he dashes across the night. With a jetpack strapped to his back, he wouldn't just deliver presents, he'd probably massage the clouds as he zooms past. But let's think back to that time. Would folks really have accepted the idea of a flying Santa? The vision would likely have sparked paranoia rather than joy in the neighbourhoods, breeding whispers of government intrusion every December. What's that glowing red light? It's not Rudolph, it's Big Brother. Parents would be left scrubbing red paint off their roofs for days. As we explore these outlandish ideas, isn't it fascinating to note the utilitarian nature of Santa's sleigh? Crafted from sturdy wood and lined with cosy blankets, it's designed for comfort and practicality, a feat that appears to have eluded all those alternative options, and for good reason. After all, with no roads to traverse and no GPS, Santa needs something reliable, something that glides effortlessly through snow, like a magic carpet that lets you dodge the realities of holiday traffic. Now, you might wonder, did Santa tweak his sleigh style over the years? Perhaps integrated a bit of steampunk flair on it as a nod to modern aesthetics? Picture brass gears, leather accents, and a little steam billowing from under the hood. A hybrid of history and technophilia that screams, "I'm hip." Santa, gearing up to compete in the annual sleigh-making competition of the North Pole, faces off against elves in wild, whimsical contraptions. One sporting a fondue pot for emergencies, and another deploying bubble machines just for effect. However, at the end of the day, there's comfort in tradition. The classic sleigh carries not just gifts, but the spirit of nostalgia, the memories of joy, laughter, and the eager hearts of children. So as we contemplate Santa's possible adaptive endeavours, let's not forget the true essence of his sleigh. It's not about how he delivers gifts, but rather about the unyielding magic of connection and love that come along with those packages. No matter how wild the alternatives may be, an enchanting ride across snowy rooftops has unearthed the essence of Christmas. A shimmering blend of whimsy, warmth, and the hope that fills the air each December. What's Santa's secret diet, you might wonder? A balanced breakfast of cookies and milk, paired possibly with the existential dread of realising he might need to cut back after the holiday season. Can we equate Santa's sugar rush with the post-holiday blues? As he swoops down chimneys and plops presents under trees like a jolly magician, we can't help but wonder, how does Santa manage to keep his figure while munching through an endless supply of sugary treats? Let's envision a typical Christmas Eve in Santa's world. After his pre-flight check with the reindeer, he gathers his elves to discuss the critical matter that all health enthusiasts dread, the disposable nature of holiday cookies. The air is rich with aromas of cinnamon, nutmeg, and a faint undercurrent of last-minute panic. As he takes a seat at the long table laden with plates, each containing a different cookie creation handcrafted by eager children, he can hardly resist the allure. Oh, these delightful little discs of flour and sugar. How could I possibly turn down a chocolate chip smorgasbord, or the ever-holiday neutral oatmeal raisin, he might proclaim, offering his best Santa wink. But here's a question that haunts him as he devours those magic morsels. Does he really burn off those calories as he trudges around the world? For the sake of science and laughter, let's figure that out. Consider the mathematics of Santa's workout. He needs to traverse the entire globe in one night. That's 24 hours of non-stop gift delivering, coordinated chaos with elves, and dodging suspicious cats who seem very interested in a sack of gifts. After that much movement, you'd think he'd be able to chow down as many cookies as he pleases, but let's break it down. What if he had a cheat day every time he made a delivery? Let's say every home he visits provides him with at least 3 cookies on average. At 2 billion children worldwide, which, let's be honest, is a pretty generous estimate, he'd need to consume approximately 6 billion cookies in one night. That's right, 6 billion! It's enough to choke an elf, but somehow Santa manages to stay sprightly year after year. Perhaps it's the magical jingles of his sleigh that counterbalance the carbs, but is ice cream actually a hidden staple in Santa's diet? Imagine the scene. Rudolph, slightly dubious, insists on the latest flavour of peppermint chocolate mochi fusion, alongside fresh fudge. Santa nods emphatically while making a mental note about cheat days, and refrains from mentioning that all the ordinary folks shoveled sweet fluff into their mouths too. Who says vegans can't enjoy a cookie? Picture Santa entering a well-lit kitchen, raising a milk moustache in defiance against nutritional standards. Let's also talk about milk. Santa isn't just choosing any milk, it's whole milk, organic, maybe even dairy-free for those health-conscious kids. People say Santa might have a gluten allergy, which would explain why he sometimes sneaks a vegan cookie. Each pint of milk fuels his celebration of holiday home energy that has been marinating since October. The caramel of holiday cheer amidst the panic of forgotten affiliate links. However, do we feel a little empathy for him? Imagine slopping down glass after glass of milk when furiously backtracking against sugar levels inching toward double digits. And let's face it, if Santa slips into diabetic shock, a holiday with a nightlight and past the gluten-free cookies becomes the trajectory of the season. Naturally, we must discuss the banner year for holiday food, fruitcake. Sorry, Santa, but may I offer you a slice of mystery that resembles last month's stale bread graced with candied fruit? Blessings on the baker's heart who tried but failed miserably to create the dish that is probably still collecting dust in the pantry, or, let's be honest, hiding under the sofa with last year's Halloween candy. Santa never speaks ill of fruitcake, but his thunderous laughter while sharing bites tends to drown out any not-so-subtle skepticism. So as Santa pops those cookies, washing them down with pure milk, we can all nod in agreement that it's not just his busy time. Life is generous in all forms, even when that rhythm looks less like ab squats and more like dancing amid sticky treats and giggles. Remember this though, the holiday cheer may eventually fade, but the lessons learned in cookie baking and sugar solving are eternal, and who knows? Maybe one year Santa will choose kale, and the world will collectively weep into their eggnog. Until then, here's to dancing through the forest of holiday cookies with Santa as our guide. While one part of the world hangs stockings and leaves cookies, another might shove a pineapple under their pillow for good luck. From Krampus to La Befana, we explore how Santa gets his multicultural makeover, complete with unexpected outcomes and treats. You see, Santa Claus isn't just a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. He's like that over-enthusiastic friend who shows up at your holiday party, wearing a rainbow-coloured onesie, complete with blinking lights and questionable dance moves. In different cultures, he trades his sleigh for varied means of transportation, be it a goat, a straw donkey, or even an overzealous reindeer, ready to get lost on the way to Grandma's house. Take, for example, the Krampus of Alpine folklore. He's Santa's terrifying counterpart, more like the scary uncle everyone warns you about at family gatherings. Instead of delivering toys, Krampus delivers the kind of holiday fear that would make even the bravest child reconsider their behaviour. Can you imagine waking up on Christmas morning only to find a pair of horns and a sack filled with, dare I say, coal? While Santa fills stockings, Krampus fills his sack with the naughty children. Or at least that's what parents tell their kids to keep them in line. Don't you dare touch that cookie before bedtime or Krampus will take you. It's a wonderfully warped way of ensuring your children have more fear than cheer during the holiday season. Now if you slide over to Italy, you'll meet La Befana. She's a charming witch-like lady who swoops in with a broom rather than a sleigh, delivering sweets to children on the night of January 5th, the eve of Epiphany. To the children's delight, unless they've been naughty, in which case they might receive coal. What is it with all the coal? La Befana treats their socks much like her magical broom, full of surprises. She's got all the sweets, but word to the wise, don't confuse her with Krampus unless you want a wild goose chase for sweet treats that may involve some decidedly strange riddles too. Her name may not inspire terror, but if you follow her into the woods, you might end up with a far scarier story than you bargained for. Across the ocean in Mexico, the three kings celebrate their own form of gift-giving on January 6th, known as El Dia de Reyes, because frankly, who can compete with the wise men? And while Santa is busy choking on cookies in one hemisphere, the kids are feasting on Rosca de Reyes, Three Kings cake, in the other. This circular delight decorated with fruit is hidden with tiny figurines, and if you find one, congratulations. You now have the honour of hosting the next year's fiesta, leaving parents pondering if they should bake or just take on early Google Calendar obligations. Mark it down for next January. Then we explore the celebrations in Japan, where Christmas is more about the finger-licking goodness of KFC than anything else. Yes, while people in the West bustle about preparing for Santa's sleigh and ho-ho-hos, the Japanese have been known to order fried chicken buckets weeks in advance. It's a tradition that began as a marketing campaign and spiraled into a cultural phenomenon, entrenching deep festive meaning into the experience of greasy, delicious chicken. You have to applaud the ingenuity. Who knew good marketing and a bit of holiday chaos could lead to a finger-licking good cultural twist? Let's not forget about Korea, which has its own readied adult version of the holiday in celebration of Christmas. There, couples celebrate with romantic dates rather than presents, opting instead for the gift of love, candlelit dinners, and shopping sprees. Santa might not be sliding down chimneys, but he's surely there in spirit, possibly watching couples ponder whether to go with pizza or fried chicken for dinner. Because honestly, who doesn't love options? As we wind down our global tour, one thing is clear. While Santa prefers cookies and milk, he has different tastes internationally. From terrifying creatures who threaten to steal your joy, to benevolent gift-bringers, and even fried chicken restaurants, the way Santa is celebrated around the world is a mixed bag of hilarious quirks and delightful traditions that remind us of the spirit of giving and feast in the strangest of forms. So next time you hang up your stocking, remember, you could be living in a world where pineapple luck brings fortune instead. Just mind Krampus lurking behind the couch. You never know what he's planning. Before the era of fancy ads and jingles, Santa was just a guy in a suit. Now, he's the globe's most marketable icon. Let's examine how clever marketing tactics turned old St. Nick into a year-round cash cow, not to mention the effects of aggressive email campaigns. Picture this. It's the 1920s, and Santa was still mainly known for his charitable deeds rather than his marketing prowess. He wasn't in the headlines splashing cash at retailers or hosting influencer parties, but rather he was hanging out with a pack of reindeer, minding his own business while just a few children were waiting for him to arrive. That all changed in 1931, when a team of clever marketers at Coca Cola decided to cozy up to Santa for their holiday ad campaign. Forget about the wholesome tales of giving. They painted a picture that positioned Santa as the life of the party, chubby, jolly, and ready to down a frosty, sugary beverage, because hydration is key when flying around the world, obviously. Now imagine Santa, already somewhat rotund from years of cookie indulgence, sipping on a chilled cola as the world watched him laugh with joy. This image worked wonders on the celebrity status-raising front. The simple act of giving our buddy Claus a soda made him relatable and appealing, like your favourite uncle who's always stopped by with snacks in hand, ready to tell stories that may or may not involve wild animals and lost Christmas presents. In the years that followed, annual Coca Cola ads featuring Santa decorated the pages of magazines and storefronts alike, turning the famous figure into something of a global staple. Santa went from religious folk tales to a must-have item in seasonal marketing, making it clear he was more than just a spirit of giving. He was the face of commercialised holiday cheer, transforming shopping trips into quests for joy. It's as if he'd traded his sleigh for a marketing strategy and toolkit. With rapid success came some unintended consequences. Unbeknownst to Santa, he accidentally set the standard for unrealistic holiday expectations. Kids around the world began to bombard their parents with wish lists so extensive that Scrooge himself would shudder at the thought of endless shopping sprees. Thanks to the sweet jolly sales approach, Santa transformed into a one-stop shop for happiness. The presents had to arrive and be worth the hype. Forget about Grandma's hand-knitted mittens. Kids began dreaming of the latest gadget or toy from a catalogue that seemed to defy both physics and parental budget constraints. Yet somehow, between playing the merry gift giver and launching full-blown print campaigns that promised dreamlike experiences, Santa found a way to embrace the chaos. Even in an age of rising consumerism and societal go-getters, he remained the steadfast protector of childhood dreams. You must admit he handled a lot of pressure, and did it all while de-stressing by eating cookies left out for him. What a pro! As advertising progressed through the decades, so did the portrayal of our good friend Santa. If the 1960s saw him teaming up with Frosty the Snowman, the 1980s brought animated Christmas specials that showcased him having a blast while saving the holidays. But beyond colourful commercials, he lined up alongside popular cultural figures who joined the big screen crusade for seasonal glory. His influence seeped through cereal boxes like a holiday toast, creating cherished moments for children while also serving up a hefty serving of consumerism. By the 1990s and early 2000s, Santa reached new peaks of commercial exposure. Now he was not just a seasonal ambassador for toys, but also for everything from cosy socks to flashy SUVs. Surprisingly, the big man had become the king of product endorsements without even signing a contract. And as the internet took hold, e-commerce ensured Santa was on every screen, just as his jolly belly fits snugly into every marketing scheme. Now, when you think of holiday shopping, what pops into your mind? Slapping on your favourite festive song while you reach for that cheeseball gel at the supermarket? Or perhaps a quick scroll through Instagram of someone's expertly wrapped gift set? And who's the culprit behind all that? Why, it's none other than Santa's branding, bringing seasonal cheer disguised as consumer delight, one bloated credit card bill at a time. So, whether you're sipping a cola or unravelling a glittery ribbon around the latest must-have item, remember, Santa didn't just ride through the seasons on a sleigh. He knew how to navigate the marketing madness, steering us all straight into the heart of good old festive capitalism, all while having a laugh at how many cookies he had to eat in one night. After all, the holiday spirit was never just about cheer. It was about selling joy, one ad campaign at a time. Picture this, a Victorian-era individual hastily decorating cards while playing a game of how many reindeer are too many. We dive into the world of Christmas cards and all the joy and pain they bring to some poor souls tasked with sending them out. The card emerges as a glorious combination of art and obligation, long before the dawn of digital invitations and the luxury of just clicking "attending" to an event on Facebook. Back then, you had to physically create or buy a card, find a pen, and wrestle with your feelings of both affection and mild obligation. Ah yes, the holidays, where you simultaneously want to connect and avoid the mental gymnastics associated with awkward small talk. Now, imagine unrolling a roll of heavy paper that feels like it's made from the very fabric of Christmas spirit itself. A bit scratchy, but undeniably festive. This was the dawn of the Christmas card, born in the 19th century when sending written greetings became all the rage. In 1843, Sir Henry Cole, a British civil servant with the social skills of a rock, commissioned the first commercially printed Christmas card. That pivotal moment heralded a new era of merriment, or as it would soon become, a holiday endurance test. Sir Henry's original creation featured a family gathering over wine and food, making him the ringleader of festive cheer that, let's be honest, could cause more eye rolls during family dinners than actual joy. Thanks, Henry. Then the floodgates opened, and soon enough, individuals were caught up in an avalanche of card-sending obligations. If you weren't sending Christmas cards, well, were you even celebrating the holiday? What did it say about you if Aunt Mildred received a card and you drowned in your own guilt? Handwritten pages of happy holidays staring you down. It was a competitive sport of festivity, ensuring not a single cousin or neighbour felt left out, not to mention the dreaded task of addressing each envelope. It was a true test of endurance, reminiscent of ancient gladiators battling their way through an arena, and the only foe, your own mounting list of distant relatives. Let's not forget about that annual card photograph either. Oh, the family portrait. Perhaps you remember gathering everyone in matching sweaters that, let's be honest, couldn't survive a single washing cycle without turning into an oversized rag. The kids crying, the dog sneezing, and Grandpa blinking at the precise moment of shutter click. What's more festive than a captured moment that guarantees a lifetime of haunting memories? You can just picture it. Those cards hitting the mail, only to be scrutinised by family members for aesthetics as if judging a painting at a gallery. Well, it looks like they had to cut you out of the picture. Again, your Aunt Betty says with feigned concern. Wouldn't it be fantastic if these Christmas cards came with a warning label? Does not come with actual happiness, joy, or good tidings. Because despite the best of intentions, sending holiday cards can sometimes feel like participating in a social experiment gone wrong. The expectations piling higher than presents under the tree. You're not just wishing someone a happy holiday. You're showcasing your social standing as the person who sent that perfect card featuring glitter that gets everywhere. Let's be honest, glitter deserves a gold medal for endurance in that tricky holiday atmosphere. In the 20th century, the tide of Christmas card evolution came crashing over us like a wave of tinsel-laden mischief, welcoming in styles that would make even the most die-hard traditionalists tug at their collars in discomfort. The introduction of clever puns sprouted like the most wretched of holiday plants. You'd start receiving cards that declared, "You'll be sorry if you don't celebrate," or "Have an oh-so-bright Christmas," cringing at every rhyme and giggle-worthy quip while tossing another facepalm into the mix. And then, lo and behold, came the advent of photo cards. This means anyone armed with a smartphone could document their lives and share them with others. Suddenly, your nutty neighbour, Karen, was sending out professionally taken portraits of her family, looking picture perfect after a long day of candy cane consumption, making you feel like the Grinch, holding back a flood of tears. The layers of envy could be stacked like the most impressive pile of gifts under your tree. After all this, wouldn't it be divine for someone to conclude sending cards isn't a tradition, but rather a standalone competition against your own unrealistic expectations. How many cards can I send while drinking eggnog and attending holiday parties? Who even started this ridiculous tradition? The reality is, if it weren't for those early bakers of holiday cheer, we might never have this hilarious juxtaposition of joy and anxiety that brings us together. So, as you unearth old Christmas cards from the depth of your holiday decorations, take a moment, chuckle at the chaos they've created, and give thanks to the Victorian pioneers of seasonal greetings. Who knew their glittery ambitions would lead to eternal ties of obligation wrapped up in paper and ribbon? In the beginning, Christmas carols were sung for fun, and then out came the serious operatic stuff. What happens when your festive jam turns into a 10-minute operatic solo? Buckle up as we assess these melodious train wrecks that make you wish for a karaoke version instead. Now, let's rewind to the 4th century AD, a time when early Christians transformed existing pagan traditions into slightly more palatable forms. Imagine a group of merry villagers, chlorophyll-soaked and slightly tipsy on mead, belting out tunes to celebrate the winter solstice. They jump around like caffeinated deer while slipping on their homemade ice slides, and voila, Christmas carols are born. These early tunes were cheerful and simple, designed to evoke joy and community, not to mention the anticipation of feasting that was about to deliver platefuls of glorious meat pies. Fast forward a few centuries, and we arrive in the 13th century, the golden age of Christmas merriment. Enter the Noel and its charmingly repetitive style, perfect for those still suffering from the after effects of last year's lingering eggnog. These were presented to the masses by troubadours who had just discovered the joy of using their voices for reasons beyond wooing local maidens. Quickly, these carols evolved from simple melodies sung in the streets to elaborate compositions worthy of the church choir. Because nothing says, "Let's celebrate the birth of Jesus," quite like a group of priests singing their hearts out with harmonies so rich they might as well have been wearing gold-embroidered robes. By the time the 18th century rolled around, cue the dramatic strings, the carol industry faced a renaissance of sorts. No longer content with mere joy, composers like Handel swapped festive jingles for what can only be described as musical marathons. Have you ever attempted to sing "Hark, the Herald Angels Sing"? It starts off innocently enough, but by the time you reach the bridge, you're gasping for air like you've just run a triathlon. You might even start to wonder if you're auditioning for a choir or applying for a spot on The Voice. And that's where we hit a bump in the melodic road. The days of light-hearted tunes were increasingly overshadowed by operatic performances that required at least 3 vocal warm-ups and a personal trainer. It's yet to be determined whether the Black Friday shopping spree was invented in response to massive choirs, or if they merely coincided, leading to the off-key singing we now hear in retail chains across America. So, while you're out purchasing last-minute presents, could you imagine entering a store and hearing "Joy to the World" in sonorous tenor while attempting your best impression of sparking holiday cheer? Yeah, that'll clear the aisles faster than you can say sail. But let's get real. Who even established this trend? We can primarily credit this transformation to the Victorians, who embraced ornate decorations, lavish feasts, and of course, a penchant for the melodramatic. Suddenly Christmas carols transformed into grand performances. Picture carolers sitting on a stage dressed in their buttoned-up finest and raising their voices from the depths of their vocal cords, so loudly that half of the neighbourhood is wondering when the local opera house installed a loudspeaker system. As the tradition moved into the 20th century, the rise of commercialism forced these carols into a delightful yet exhausting cycle of reinterpretation. Radio stations unleashed a barrage of jingles that left even Scrooge fighting the urge to join in, despite the fact that no one remembers how Jingle Bells turned into a 3-minute car ride with jazz riffs slapped on it. Now, modern covers oscillated between the nostalgic and the ridiculous. Perhaps you heard the rendition that sounded more suited for a Broadway musical than wrapping up with eggnog beside the fire. Ironically, this radical evolution of Christmas carols only added spice to our holiday traditions. As I wade through the Christmas playlist, there is something charming about the remnants of those simpler melodies. After all, do we really need another operatic solo to remind us that 'tis the season? So next time you hear a group of well-preened singers start to wail through 8 verses of the first Noel, remember that history has given us the gift of contrast. From foot-tapping tunes to serenades that bring imaginary violins to mind, the world of Christmas carols reminds us one simple truth. Even a carol can evolve into something downright amusing. As you settle down with your cup of cocoa and warm your toes by the fire, embrace the quirky strains of these holiday songs. They're as full of surprises as Santa's own gift bag. Ah yes, the Grinch, the original Christmas joy killer turned cuddly icon. We'll dissect this green man's backstory, his strange tactics, and whether or not he secretly was a failed version of Santa Claus before the whole grumpy character arose. Spoiler. Who knew he could mess with logistics? Our journey with this fuzzy antagonist begins in Whoville, a cosy little town painted with cheerful lights and obnoxiously loud holiday carols. The Whos, with their distinctive jolly nature, enjoyed almost everything about Christmas, except, of course, the Grinch. Imagine living next to someone who hoarded their true feelings about the season behind layers of green fur and very questionable hygiene. You'd probably want to spray some air freshener just to maintain your sanity. But why was the Grinch so darn grumpy? Was he just a misunderstood misfit? Or perhaps he was just suffering from chronic seasonal affective disorder in the brightest part of the year. Somewhere amidst his isolated mountain abode, one could easily imagine him staring woefully at a half-deflated holiday balloon, considering whether a career change into, say, hardcore mime was on the horizon. Maybe he felt left out and underappreciated, or maybe the sheer volume of Whoville's holiday cheer began to feel like Christmas caroling at an ear-splitting 11 on the decibel scale. His infamous plan to ruin Christmas was as diabolical as it was hilariously misguided. This wasn't your typical villainous plot involving elaborate machinery and henchmen. Nope. The Grinch's scheme was simpler. He was going to steal Christmas. All those whoopee-hoo decorations and giddy greetings, gone in a flash. He'd show them that Christmas was less about family and friends and more about sneaking around in the middle of the night dressed like a very fuzzy bad decision. Really though, was he expecting accolades for doing the most un-Christmassy thing ever? Taking everything that brought light into Whoville and smashing it into a pile of green-tinted despair was not the proper way to spread holiday cheer. But here's the kicker, the Grinch is a master of logistics. He had it all mapped out. Sneak down chimneys, stuff the stockings, and even swipe the Christmas roast with the precision of a noir film thief. If Santa had given out internships, the Grinch's resume would have been more reliable than ever. Imagine all those Christmas lights wrapped up in his sleigh, and he doesn't even have a sleigh. Poor fellow was just hauling a sack like he was a second-string mascot at a tech startup's Christmas party. It's almost charming to witness his absurdity, really. But then comes the twist of fate as he realised, while slumped atop Mount Crumpet, that the bedtime melody of Christmas was not found in the presents or the feasts. It was in the spirit of the Whos singing joyously, not missing a beat. Now, if the Grinch only had a better understanding of Santa's business model, we might have avoided his epic steal the Christmas moment. Sure, we could argue that Mr. Claus would have seen the Grinch coming from a mile away. After all, Santa is the ultimate logistics guru, with a network of elves that rival any Fortune 500 company's operations team. You'd better believe Santa made a suitable backup plan for when gifts go missing, or rather, for when overly zealous green creatures decide to throw a wrench into Christmas cheer. In many ways, the Grinch's arc of redemption parallels that of Santa's evolution. He went from green-skinned Scrooge to the epitome of holiday cheer, proving that sometimes one needs to literally steal Christmas to understand it. When he finally embraced the true meaning of Christmas, friendship, joy, and maybe forgiveness, he became the ideal festive ambassador, fitting snugly in Santa's metaphorical pocket. In fact, if it weren't for his shenanigans, Santa may not have fully understood the power of compassion and joviality, proving once and for all that behind every grumpy exterior, there exists a heartwarming holiday revelation waiting to be uncovered. So, the Grinch may have started out as a villain, but he quickly transformed into a reminder that even the most festive time of year can be overshadowed by grumpiness. If he was a rival, he turned into a rather quirky sidekick. Hence, Santa's brand may just have become synonymous with redemption, acceptance, and perhaps a little more green than we expected. And who among us hasn't cheered on a former curmudgeon realising how unstuffy Christmas can be? Because at the end of the day, what's more satisfying than seeing someone come together with a whole community for the sake of holiday spirit? Even the Grinch, with his tangled, messy logistics, serves as a great reminder that Christmas can still warm the coldest hearts. We'll explore how Santa's wardrobe changed over the centuries, from serious bishop gear that could have doubled as a church choir outfit to a snazzy red suit with white fluff. But for real, if he wore black leather, would Christmas caroling still happen? And were stripes ever in? Let's take a sleigh ride back in time to the origins of Santa's fashion choices. Picture it, the 4th century, and a young man named Nicholas is carrying out his bishoply duties in what can only be described as 100% priest-approved attire. We're talking long robes, a mitre, and maybe, just maybe, a pair of sandals that scream, "I'm doing this for the free lunch." Trust me, he wouldn't turn down a plate of reindeer stew. Fast forward to the Renaissance, when he would have swapped out the sandals for some sensible leather shoes, sporting those knee-length socks that make you question the very fabric of fashion. Halloween? More like, "Hallow may I secure a decent pair of trousers on a timber-framed chapel." As the centuries trundled along, Santa's style underwent more transformations than anyone at a twerking contest. Enter the 19th century, where new materials came into play, and the guy was just trying to remain relevant in a changing world. You could imagine him wearing what can only be described as the grandfather of the modern Santa suit, a frock coat that's slightly more stylish than the average peasant's wool dress. Dainty enough to appeal to the upper crust, yet sturdy enough to withstand the wear and tear of sleigh rides and chimney escapades, a bit like the IKEA furniture of its day, except it never came with instructions. Then, in 1822, a moustached figure named Clement Clark Moore had the absolutely brilliant idea to pen a poem that would change Santa's wardrobe forever. A Visit from St. Nicholas, known more popularly as The Night Before Christmas, introduced a plump, jolly Santa who was so full of cheer he could pop the seams of this bishoply ensemble. Suddenly it's all about the rosy cheeks and the big belly, a proof that he was always ready for cookie season. However, the real fashion revolution hit when Coca Cola came into the picture in the 1930s. You see, folks, Santa was already rocking the classic red and white colours long before he was seen on those soda advertisements. But the marketing geniuses at Coca Cola decided to inject Coca Cola enthusiasm right into his fuzzy cheeks, solidifying the red suit as an icon for generations to come. I mean, Who wouldn't want a jolly, soda-chugging man decked out in festive hues proclaiming ho 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 and waving a sugary product in their face? And let's not ignore the rumours swirling that in some alternate universe, Santa should have been wearing stripes, plaid, and patterns that could make a peacock envious. Imagine him confused at his wardrobe. Wait, were polka dots right in for holiday cheer? One can only wonder what kind of holiday gatherings would look like if Santa had taken one too many fashion risks, shrugged off the trends, and pulled off something like pastel florals with suspenders, an absolute nightmare for any elf coordinating the Christmas party attire. Of course, whether it's the modern glamorous Santa or the medieval clerical garb, one thing has generally stayed the same: his signature fluffy white beard. You can't have Santa without that beard, right? Just picture Santa at the barber's perusing through pamphlets of beard grooming products. Do I look more rustic or slick with a dash of pomade today? As if he'd ever choose to modify perfection. But let's be honest, would he even need that long beard if he had opted for a sleek hipster look? Would snow not stick in the same manner? Would kids still believe in him? Or would they just think, oh, how did he grind that coffee so finely? In the end, Santa's fashion evolution reflects a blend of tradition, marketing genius, and some sheer weirdness in a world that doesn't take itself too seriously. So let's raise a glass of fizzy drink, maybe root beer for the sake of this comparison, and toast to the enduring spirit of Santa, the ever-evolving figure whose fashion sense continues to inspire everything from holiday pyjamas to cookie-themed winter gear. May he remain ever fashionable, for the joy of the season rides on his vibrant colour options, because who doesn't believe in a guy who can pull off reindeer with style? Santa's like the ultimate grandparent. The mysteries alone would fuel urban legends. From presents gone missing to sightings around the corner, we uncover the outlandish tales that have sprung up over the years and discuss whether any of them are remotely believable. Think about it. How many of us have heard tales whispered among kids wide-eyed with wonder? Did you know Santa once got stuck in a chimney and had to be rescued by a family of raccoons? Yes, that legend might sound delightful, but it raises a pressing question. Who's really in charge of chimney safety inspections in this scenario? Picture families strewn across the floor like wrapping paper on December 25th, each declaring their uncanny experience with Santa. "I swear he ate my cookies," they'll say, eyes glistening with nostalgia, as they recount the salty taste of disappointment when they discover an empty plate. "How could he not love my grandmama's special ginger snaps? Not even crumbs." Herein lies a curious conundrum. Has Santa developed an aversion to baked goods due to a secret gluten allergy? Or was he simply trying to maintain his calorie count and stay in shape for the sleigh rides? Let's take a detour into Santa's covert operations. Inspired by stories of his highly classified surveillance techniques, people point out the practicality of an elite spy network made up of elves. These little helpers are often dismissed as whimsical, but they've been reported lurking behind bushes, peering through windows and taking meticulous notes about your naughty and nice quotient. Leave your curtains open at your peril. "You think your kids are safe?" one neighbour whispers nervously, slightly unnerved by the Christmas cheer. Those elves are watching, you know. Talk about invasive privacy. Imagine the horror if your neighbour decided to install surveillance cameras. At least you'd have no worries about who's sneaking around in your bushes. And who hasn't stumbled upon that one legend claiming that Santa might actually have an entire team of hired ninjas infiltrating households to keep an eye on who's really been naughty? They sneak in and plant something you never ask for, and poof, they say, as if in an elaborate stage play. It's the Christmas version of Mission Impossible, but the stakes are somehow lower, unless of course you get underwear. Talk about the biggest naughty gift send-off that could leave you questioning life choices like, Why did I disregard the forever use of gift receipts? But let's discuss the Santa Claus is coming to town factor. Whispers abound about how Santa elicits children's wildest fears. You better be good or else. Who thought menacing kids into submission was a solid strategy? Were parenting guides written during the North Pole's winter retreats? Threatened by one jolly guy with a thick white beard, children shivering in fear with a vague promise of coal attract, a whole new genre of dramatic play. You'd better be careful. You might just wake up to an empty sack for Christmas. Talk about an extreme threat level. Who needs modern parenting strategies when your little ones have Santa to keep them on their toes? Next, there's the infamous legend surrounding kids attempting to catch Santa in the act. Because let's be honest, nothing says, "Trust me, I'm a jolly guy." Quite like wearing a red suit and sneaking around rooftops under the cover of darkness to avoid being watched, or perhaps being struck down by the coal fairy. But the reality is that kids wake up at 3 a.m. just to see him drop down from nowhere. Stealth mode engaged. How has nobody thought him capable of teleportation? Certainly all the North Pole's magic can't just stay in the snow, can it? And then there's the case of old St. Nick getting mistaken for a burglar by homeowners who have overdone it on the holiday eggnog or gotten a bit too cosy with the couch after too many reruns of those not-so-beloved Christmas specials. The unexpected havoc during the holidays lasts longer than most families' traditional leg wrestling tournaments, a neighbour once lamented, recounting a specific moment her husband went diving for his shotgun because Santa became too close for comfort. In the end, it's the folklore around Santa Claus that makes his existence all the more magical, or maybe downright hilarious. Whether he's a spunky myth that keeps parents on their toes, a shadowy figure in spy folklore, or a clumsy wildlife enthusiast caught in a chimney predicament, one thing is for certain: Santa Claus has claimed a space in urban legends, where laughter dances with disbelief, and every unwrapped present adds another layer to his already thickly woven story. So tip your hat to your hot cocoa, and possibly the cousin who half-heartedly believes in the validity of Santa. Here's to the man in red, the ultimate puzzle piece in a world of Christmas cheer, keeping the holiday mysteries alive, one urban legend at a time. We sit down with a faux wildlife expert to discuss how Santa manages to keep his reindeer fed and fit during their all-night sleigh ride. Would they rather snack on kale, or is there something more delectable in those North Pole snowdrifts? As we embark on this frosty adventure, perhaps it's time to gently question how reindeer make it through an entire night's work, transporting presents to well-behaved children all around the world. They're essentially working two jobs: part-time sleigh pullers and full-time snack connoisseurs. But let's put this into perspective. When Santa says naughty or nice, he might also be rendering judgment on what food his reindeer receive during their grueling marathon. So, what exactly do those critters feast on before jet-setting from the North Pole? Imagine sitting in Santa's workshop, a chilled mug of gingerbread latte in hand. Just then, one of Santa's elf assistants scuttles in, armed with a clipboard filled with reindeer dietary preferences. Carrots are out, they inform you, eyes a twinkle, and kale isn't quite cutting it either. It turns out Dasher and Dancer have developed quite a fondness for pizza at the North Pole Cafe. Honestly, anyone who's tried to eat a salad in freezing temperatures knows that even Rudolph would much prefer a warm slice of pepperoni over cold greens. But as absurd as that sounds, there may be a thin veil of truth hidden under those reindeer antlers. Hypothetically speaking, if Santa were to feed them expired pizza, would we, together with the world's children, would still have a jolly old trip to the white Christmas wonderland? Wait, is Santa's sleigh just a glorified Uber Eats on steroids? Instead of a secondary elf on the reindeer board of business, it's an eco-friendly, reusable sleigh that simply delivers reindeer fuel just in time for the big night. Talk about cutting out the middleman. The experts, who, remember, are faux wildlife specialists because we're in a world of make-believe here, suggest that reindeer have the unique ability to harness a special kind of Christmas magic to get through that long night. Apparently, when they glide through the sky, their digestive systems transform average snacks into pure energy, sort of like a souped-up holiday power bar. Just imagine. With every cookie Santa devours upon delivery, there's some mystical connection to the reindeer's ability to soar even higher. So, if you leave one less cookie for Santa, do you risk sending the whole reindeer fleet tumbling through the clouds? Now, as we move on to the mechanics of travel, consider this. How many reindeer do you think it takes to pull a fully loaded sleigh, especially one that's crammed with toys for every good child? Logistics alone could drive any elf into a chocolate-fueled panic. Our faux wildlife expert whispers something poetic. It's not about the number of reindeer, it's about the right ones. Which is both advice for navigating your career and a handy mantra for matchmaking. Who knew Rudolph wasn't just a red-nosed reindeer, but a metaphorical love guru? In theory, if each reindeer can only withstand a specific weight, let's not even think about how much glitter Polly the Unicorn contributes, whilst also adhering to the strict don't show your underbelly weight distribution strategy during their flight. How does Santa remain so spry? This could be the holiday conundrum. If Santa were to gain a pound for every cookie left on Christmas Eve, he'd be lugging along a sled weighed down by self-imposed consequences, deeming Sleigh Bell 365 days of cardio to keep weight off. So, as we conclude our cheeky discussion about reindeer food obsession, let's face facts. Santa isn't just transporting presents. He is, in fact, pulling off the world's largest holiday heist, all while making it seem like it's about the cheer, when really it's a game of logistics involving healthy reindeer diets, one too many pieces of bad pizza, and maybe shares in a kale farming business. Who knew there was so much mischief behind the scenes of Santa's sleigh? So the next time you hear jingling, Mayune, it's not Santa. It's just a horde of reindeer attempting to pull off the ideal between health and ho-ho-ho in the holiday circuit. Ah well, just saying. A little milk and a whole lot of pizza might be the winning combination. Let's dig into the mysterious world of Santa's helpers, aka the elves. Are they actually busy working in the workshop, or are they just banding together for a quick holiday break? Spoiler, their union is on the rocks. You see, while some might envision a cheerful assembly line of pint-sized Santa clones churning out toys with all the joy of a holiday baking show, the reality is slightly less glam. The elves are often beset by deadlines, mismanaged toy allocations, and a shocking lack of quality control. Imagine waking up in a tiny wooden bunk bed in a workshop that smells like burnt gingerbread, the kind that permeates your dreams and hovers above your morning oatmeal like a festive ghost. As you shuffle out into the communal area, still trying to remember if the last time you washed your festive tunic was yesterday or last December, the first thing you notice is that the coffee pot is empty. A nasty start to a workday, especially in the land of holiday cheer. You finally resign yourself to the fact that reindeer fuel is going to have to be replaced by a double shot of peppermint mocha, courtesy of that Starbucks that inexplicably finds its way to the North Pole every holiday season. That'll make me feel jolly in no time, you think, as you join the horde of fellow elves already throwing back their third cup of eggnog-flavoured brew. Now, let's talk toys. Oh boy, the toys! After you're done with caffeinating, you sit down at your designated workstation, a randomised area littered with half-finished toy prototypes. On your right is Fred, your not-so-enthusiastic colleague, still attempting to assemble what most would call a space rover, but looks more like a confused crab with a rocket strapped to its shell. On your left is Clara, who seems to be in another zone entirely, stenciling Santa's outrageous annual Christmas splashdown event, repeatedly on holiday-themed Do Not Disturb signs. Despite the chaos, it's time to dig in. You grab your trusty tool belt, 1 part tradition, 1 part outdated relic, and engage in what's known as Toy-mageddon, where the stakes are as high as your sugar levels as various toys emerge from the production line like badly behaved children at a birthday party. Next stop, Mary's Cabbage Patch Kid, you shout over the din of saws, hammers, and the occasional anguished elf scream as someone steps on a rogue action figure. But hold on, all this spirited competition and chaos within Santa's workshop brings out a creeping malaise, the lack of a proper union. Yes, we're talking about workshop unrest. The elves' union meetings often devolve into heated debates over whether the answer to improved working conditions lies in a better coffee machine or flexing their right to a holiday. After all, who doesn't envision a traditional Santa's workshop day off? Not a single one of them is content with finishing yet another toy when they could be lounging in front of a roaring fire, preferably with some kind of festive fishy cocktail with multiple umbrellas, mind you. And let's not forget the competition that's secretly brewing. Despite the tongue-in-cheek camaraderie, there's a line of division between the vintage toy makers and the tech-savvy toy engineers. You can practically cut the tension with a holiday cookie cutter. Recently introduced AI-driven toy manufacture has ruffled a few feathers, with claims swirling around that they can do the jobs of 3 hard-working elves without even needing to use a sugar-fueled energy drink. As the workshop gears up for the big night, rumours fly. Will these bots replace us? Would Santa even let that happen? The last thing he'd want is a group of lifeless gadgets marching down chimneys with digital toys and chipper catchphrases. Heaven forbid, next thing you know, there'll be no cookies left for reindeer at all. In any workplace, the stress can sometimes hit harder than the winter winds outside. So eventually the elves meet, hidden surprisingly well in the back corner of a crowded lunchroom, where stale fruitcake is always available. They map out their proposed work-life balance initiative. Will it mean reduced work hours in December? More cocoa breaks? Perhaps a dedicated hour for reindeer petting? Who knows? You just know that the threat level is rising, and the stakes are as high as Mrs. Claus's double-layer gingerbread cake. To say the elves are overworked would be an understatement. Somehow, in the middle of it all, they remain eternally optimistic about the holiday spirit, because at the end of the day, it's about more than just toys and assembly lines. It's about the twinkle in a child's eye when they unveil their gifts. So, while the elves might bicker over coffee, toy assembly and looming AI threats, underneath it all is a shared belief in the magic of the season, one that keeps their morale up and their spirits bright for another long year at work. Welcome to the real North Pole, where if the union doesn't fall apart first, you may just find holiday cheer threaded deep into every toy and pitter-patter of tiny sparkly boots in the workshop. Without Christmas spirit, what do we really have? Each year we're tasked to get into the holiday cheer without resembling a Christmas cliché. How do you balance family gatherings with sibling rivalry and still find a way to enjoy the season? Imagine finding yourself at the annual family get-together, a veritable snow globe of mixed emotions and, let's be honest, questionable eggnog. You can practically smell the spirit, like a combination of cinnamon, desperation, and that one uncle's bad cologne. Not to mention the odd holiday sweater that looks ready for a wardrobe malfunction. Now let's talk about the meals. It's all about a careful choreography of culinary delights and potential family feuds. Your great-aunt Mildred insists on her world-famous fruitcake, which has aged more gracefully than her. You could throw a brick and not get through that dense brick of whipped fruit and nuts. At least it'll hold the roof together if you ever need to fix your house. And speaking of meals, how do you remain civil as your cousin Chad boasts about his keto, paleo, carnivore, gluten-free air diet while you're happily shoveling mashed potatoes into your mouth. Just a little butter and gravy for me, thanks. Meanwhile, you're dodging questions about your career and love life like a holiday dodgeball champion. Family gatherings are never complete without the inevitable Christmas games. It starts off harmlessly enough with a rousing round of charades, which quickly devolves into an unintelligible series of shouting as you try to guess if your sister is mimicking a Christmas tree, or perhaps auditioning for a role as a disgruntled elf. Wouldn't it be great if there was a magical Christmas spirit that would make everyone forget they can't draw a straight line, let alone depict a reindeer? You can practically hear Grandma contemplating her life choices while her cheese platter goes untouched, further amplifying the awkwardness in the room. Of course, let's not ignore the gift-giving phase of the evening. Oh, the joy and excitement, until you see your dad's face after unwrapping a set of warm socks. Again, the look he gives is somewhere between gratitude and really. Who knew Christmas spirit comes in such undeniably cosy packages? You're left wondering if you should express genuine enthusiasm for the gift, or just admit he would have preferred a gift card to the nearest donut shop. A simple compromise in the name of holiday harmony, perhaps. Speaking of holiday spirit, did you ever consider how some folks approach it with less enthusiasm, but double the cynicism? Enter your best friend, who shows up for Christmas dinner with a hoodie that reads, "Bah, humbug," as he dramatically recounts stories of Christmas past like political family scandals. Even he, through all his sarcasm, has a twinkle in his eye when someone mentions cookies. Let's face it, there's something magical about holiday treats that can unite even the most cynical spirit. And let's not overlook how quickly Christmas lights can go from decorative to debatable. You know you're in trouble when Aunt Edna comes over, squinting skeptically at your tree's colour-coordinated ornaments and declaring that back in her day it was all about the tinsel. Suddenly you're faced with the ultimatum. Should you bow to tradition or embrace your own unique, slightly chaotic design? You just know that if she gets her mitts on the glow-in-the-dark nativity set, it's going to be a whole new kind of Christmas nightmare. Ah, but amidst all this holiday chaos lies a profound truth. The essence of Christmas spirit is really just about coming together, no matter how bizarre the circumstances. Whether it's bonding over burnt cookies or awkwardly navigating the careful semantics of "and what do you do for a living" at the dinner table, it's these little snippets of humanity that keep the spirit alive. Not to mention that faint whiff of gingerbread that tickles your senses every now and then, reminding you that, despite the chaos, love, laughter, and a mutual appreciation of post-dinner naps keep us all thriving through it. So there you have it. A beautifully chaotic tapestry of holiday spirit and how it manifests in every Christmas gathering. You might not have the jingle bells ringing perfectly in tune, but if there's laughter, some awkward moments, and plenty of cookies, you've definitely tapped into the true meaning of the Christmas spirit, one awkward family moment at a time. A song meant to evoke joy and merriment? Or is it simply a hint of what might happen if Santa misses a house and sends his cart tumbling down a hill? We dissect why Jingle Bells deserves more attention than it gets. Originally written in 1857 by James Lord Pierpont, Jingle Bells wasn't even intended to be a Christmas song. Nope. Instead, it was originally composed as a Thanksgiving song to celebrate the joys of sleigh riding. That's right. A tune of frosty fun, perhaps about racing over crisp leaves rather than jingling around the Christmas tree. Imagine Santa singing a little turkey layover tune while racing back to his workshop. It'd be like getting an unexpected espresso shot while expecting a calm decaf blend. But let's be real, when you hear that catchy tune trilling through the air, visions of sugar plum fairies and mistletoe mingle in your mind with much more questionable imagery. Picture Santa, a jolly figure, bouncing around with a reindeer, but suddenly he's in a sleigh gone rogue, careening down a snowy slope. Maybe he forgot a present or two, or hit a patch of black ice. You can almost hear the elves' tiny yelps of distress as the sleigh tips dangerously to one side. It's like a holiday version of the spin the bottle game, but instead of kisses, you're gifting ducked heads and wobbly laughs. Now, ever stop to wonder what goes on in Santa's head while this festive fiasco unfolds? Does he fear for the precious toys he may lose along the way, or is he caught up in the sheer excitement of flying at breakneck speed, like a maniac in a holiday thrill ride? Is he worrying if the kids are still expecting their carefully wrapped dinosaur action figures while his sleigh tumbles? Okay, fine. Maybe he should be more concerned about his safety first, but still, we can't help but picture some reindeer rolling their eyes as they try to keep up with him. Speaking of the reindeer, did you know that when Jingle Bells was first released, the reindeer breed of choice was most likely not those 8 famous ones we know today? In fact, settlers would often use whatever horses were nearby, so Gerald with that one antler would make a valiant show up as a puller. Can you envision that mix-up? Santa leaning in, Dasher, Dancer, and, who's this guy? Maybe it would have been more like, wait, are you even house-trained? And let's take a moment to consider how all those cheerful jingles can be a bit misleading. The song is essentially a nostalgic ode to the simple joys of winter fun, but behind those bright notes lingers the underlying stress of last-minute shopping, burnt cookies, and the weight of holiday expectations. I'm sorry, children. I had to use the last bit of cookie dough for my banana bread experiment. Can couscous be a plausible substitute for flour? Meanwhile, as Santa plummets into holiday mayhem, parents everywhere are silently wondering if they can still salvage the season without incurring too much debt or a visit from the collection agency. The vague jingle all the way remorse. Now let's venture into the land of psychology for a second, shall we? Why does Jingle Bells resonate so deeply with us? Perhaps it's because it distills the frantic energy of family gatherings into a catchy refrain, like cramming 15 family members into a small living room and trying to navigate who gets the last gingerbread cookie. We all want a piece, but there's only one cookie left, and you hear shouts of, "I've been waiting all season," and then suddenly you're thrust into a competitive tag race as everyone tries to woo Santa with their best behaviour before Christmas dinner. No pressure, kids! Ultimately, Jingle Bells manages to capture more than just the charm of sleigh rides. It encapsulates the universe of familial expectations, childhood excitement, and holiday chaos. Maybe the song deserves more than just resurfacing in December. It should be played year-round as a therapy tool for parents navigating all kinds of seasonal festivities. Think about it. A little background jingle to soothe those moments of doubt and kid chaos at birthday parties, Halloween haunted houses, or heck, even mock New Year's celebrations. So, next time Jingle Bells plays and you find yourself swept up by its infectious beat, think beyond the ordinary giddy cheer. Consider the complex layers of attachment woven into its melody, where joyful pandemonium can lead us on a wild sleigh ride of nostalgia, eccentricity, and the comforting, albeit chaotic, embrace of shared experiences. In the grand narrative of holiday legends and lullabies, we can now toast to Jingle Bells and all its hinting mishaps, and look forward, perhaps, to a day when we get to celebrate Santa on his days off with a kale smoothie to boot. As we slide into the modern age, possibly against his wishes, what would Santa think of smart home tech? Would he renew his Netflix subscription, scan for those Christmas movies? Here's us pondering just how tech-savvy he'd be in a world filled with gadgets. Picture Santa, bleary-eyed and attempting to navigate his new smart fridge, which insists on reminding him when to replace the milk, something he never had to think about when surplus supplies of milk and cookies were a matter of Christmas folklore rather than smart reminders. At this point, if the fridge could talk, it might be suggesting that Santa switched to oat milk for that lactose-free glow. Imagine him, at the North Pole, waving his hands in frustration as he tries to teach the elves how to upgrade from logbooks to a cloud-based delivery system. The elves, meanwhile, are probably wondering why they need a logistics app when paper and quills work just fine for centuries. Why fix what isn't broken, they'd say, clutching the quills like they were sacred relics. This is the age-old struggle of innovation versus tradition, and Santa is smack dab in the middle of it, increasingly unsure about whether cloud computing even has enough cumulus in it to carry presents. Now, let's fast forward to Santa using an AI assistant named Rudolph. Of course, programmed to handle all his daily logistics. Wouldn't it be something if he woke up to a soothing voice say, "Good morning, Santa. You have 15 new orders, 3 naughty kids turning nice, and your yearly review with Mrs. Claus is due." Can you picture Santa sitting in front of an AI screen, frowning at the data dashboards? After all, the only screen he's used to is the one displaying reindeer games, broadcasting the elf basketball championships, and wondering why the North Pole is always in a constant state of blizzard. Not to mention the number of times he forgot to trade the broken toys for shiny new ones. And let's not forget Santa's email inbox filled with emails from parents across the globe, desperately trying to update that wish list they forgot to send in all year. "Dear Santa," they type with that strangely formal tone. "I know it's June, but my son has a new monologue about how he'd like a giant inflatable unicorn for reasons we still don't understand." Santa reads it and chuckles, while trying to figure out how to get that inflatable unicorn to the right house without it popping in his sleigh mid-flight. Meanwhile, Mrs. Claus sends him a text reminding him to keep the sugar cookie shelf stocked, while wrestling with spreadsheets of naughty and nice prose that would make any quality control manager sweat bullets. Have you ever wondered if there's an app for tracking reindeer GPS? Maybe one that would navigate them through the streets of Manhattan during rush hour, avoiding pigeon fender benders. After all, would Rudolph get a chance to sneak in a personal joyride while Santa's back is turned? If these reindeer had smartphones, they'd probably have their own TikTok channels, posting videos of wild sleigh stunts, the kind that could go viral overnight. "Look at our grand leap over the moon! Santa need more cookies," they'd caption it, ruining the sanctity of Christmas for everyone just scrolling through their feeds. Then, let's talk about Santa's social media presence. Would he have an Instagram account called Santa Snaps, where he posts daily advent selfies? Day 1, peppermint mocha with friendship, indicating that being nice isn't just for the holidays, but an everyday commitment worthy of hashtags. Could you imagine him struggling with influencers who claim to have a better connection with kids than he does? Winter after winter, battling the algorithms just to guarantee that kids everywhere see the post that clearly states there's no need to leave out lettuce. Some things never change, kids. Milk and cookies or nothing. Vintage Santa. Binary choices. So what would all of this mean for the big guy? Would he embrace tech with open arms, feeling that digital savvy could help him spread cheer even faster? Or would he struggle in the face of his traditionalist desires, stuck between nostalgia for sleigh rides in the snow and the allure of optimized AI-driven logistics? One thing's for sure, whatever tech Santa decides to embrace, there will always be a spark of human warmth and the magic of Christmas beneath it, whether he's delivering gifts through the cloud or simply enjoying some downtime in front of a crackling fireplace with a good old-fashioned book of wishes. Because in Santa's world, it's always about creating a little joy, whether that's in bites or humanity. Could Santa actually be a political ploy created to manipulate gifting and consumerism levels? What happens when we delve into the conspiracy theories cooked up over the years? Spoiler, it involves a lot of caffeine-fueled debates. Picture this. It's the 1950s, and you're sitting in a smoke-filled diner with a bunch of hipsters, sipping on your spiked eggnog while discussing the many reasons Santa Claus might be less of a benevolent holiday icon and more of a masterful marketing invention. Santa's just a ploy to sell us more stuff, one conspiratorial genius might say, eye-twitching like they've had one too many cups of that diner coffee, and you, well, suddenly you're hooked. The idea jingles in your mind like a sleigh bell. Could it be? Let's start with the origins of good old Saint Nick. This cheerful fellow has roots reaching back to the 4th century, when he was Bishop Nicholas of Myra, known for his generosity towards the poor. Fast forward to the 19th century when he traded in solemnity for sleigh rides and whipped cream-topped cocoa, thanks in part to clever advertising campaigns from massive corporations hungry for holiday cash. Enter Coca Cola in the 1930s, rebranding Santa into the jolly gonzo we know today. Who knew attaching a hefty red suit and a belly full of biscuits would be as good for corporate sales as it is for our waistlines? So, was Santa originally just a heavyset guy simply trying to give little kids presents? Or was he this long-term investment plan in capitalism's greater scheme? Now, let's consider the timing. You think Thanksgiving gets a jump on Christmas every year? Picture this. February rolls around, and we're still basking in the afterglow of Christmas. Suddenly, stores release their Valentine's Day decorations until we subtly slip across the aisle to the Easter section. All this while, the Christmas decorations have been shoved into the back corner. What's up with that, you ask? It's simple. The retailers know that if you spend your hard-earned cash on gifts, your budget is tighter for the rest of the year. And who better to blame for empty wallets come January than Santa himself? It's not me, it's Santa, is something I imagine the average adult says while staring at their credit card bills. But wait, there's more. Grab the popcorn, because here comes the conspiracy link to the government. What if Santa's perfect festivity is used to soften the economic blows we face as consumers? You're sneaking into the conspiracy territory, watching out for those red and white hat-wearing agents. The more we spend on gifts, the less we ask about how our tax dollars are being spent, you whisper conspiratorially to your friend, who is also slowly nursing a bottomless cup of hot cocoa. The argument suggests that buying presents puts us in the holiday spirit, while conveniently ignoring societal problems lurking in the shadows like Grinch on a dark, stormy night. In Walks, the idea of the Christmas shopping season, poised to boost economies everywhere. Santa Claus is the ultimate mascot, luring children and their parents down aisles packed with shiny wrapping paper and towering piles of toys. Can you spot the holiday merchandise between all the scented candles and Christmas sweaters? Definitely not. They're all draped in red, causing our eyes to glaze over while our wallets mysteriously feel lighter. And while all this is happening, you can bet Santa has a front row seat, chuckling intensely, his laugh resonating over the ringing cash registers. Ho ho, buy 4, get a 5th half off. Yet conspiracies don't end at gift giving. Consider how Santa survives all those holiday cookies. What if he's snacking and giving subtle backhanded signals for all of us to gain a little weight too? We can't have any fit Santas ruining the holiday image, can we? Your table mates would theorise with wide eyes, wondering if the local gym was in cahoots with a dastardly holiday plan. According to this logic, the rise of Santa's BMI, that's body mass index for those not keeping track, is merely a facade to reinforce our unhealthy holiday habits, while coaxing us gently into yet another downward spiral of holiday gluttony. As you swirl your styrofoam cup of steaming drink, you can't help but laugh at the absurdity and the marvels of holiday how-tos. Because when it comes down to it, whether Santa Claus is an elaborate plan laid out in secret behind closed doors, or he simply wants everyone to experience joy and belonging, he's been skillfully embedded into holiday lore. That said, It's hard not to laugh at the easy banter amidst all the festive chaos swirling around you, especially when the truth behind Santa just might be stranger than any myth you conjured up after your 5th cup of diner coffee. So whether you embrace the full sleigh load of conspiracy or just sip your cocoa in peace, the man in the red suit will keep you guessing, laughing and, let's be honest, shopping. Eventually we delve into what would make Santa's Netflix queue a surreal blend, we assume, of animated magic and potentially alarming live-action disasters. Would The Nightmare Before Christmas land on his watch list? The idea of a skeletal figure hijacking Christmas might tickle Santa's funny bone as he cringes at what kind of repercussions it would bring to his carefully curated holidays. And is it just me? Or can you imagine Santa sitting on his throne, chuckling along to Jack Skellington's misadventures, all while muttering under his breath about no good reindeer night hijinks gone awry? Let's also not overlook the animation powerhouse A Charlie Brown Christmas. Imagine Santa getting misty-eyed while watching Charlie and the gang try to find the true meaning of Christmas in the midst of mental breakdowns, which is a bit like watching his elves battle with inventory on December 24th, measuring heartfelt moments against existential dread. As the iconic tree shimmers with 5 ornaments and an existential crisis, one can almost hear Santa exclaim, "That's the spirit, kids!" Subtle, inspirational moments often go unnoticed when the calories from cookies have kicked in. Speaking of cookies, imagine Santa diving into classic holiday flicks like Home Alone. Oh, the hearty chuckle that must escape his lips. Can you see him pitching a fit on his couch while Kevin McAllister foils the wet bandit's antics? Those rascals wouldn't know a Christmas Eve if it hit them with a flying paint can. It's sheer entertainment, much like the time the elves accidentally wrapped up all that earwax for gifts. Light-hearted chaos at its best. It's like Santa's natural ability to improvise gets showcased here. After all, who wouldn't love a reminder that it's okay to call the cops when things go sideways? Now, if we peek into the spectre of movie mischief, we cannot shy away from Bad Santa. For the love of Christmas, how does this character still get hired as Santa? The image of a drunk snowman impersonating Santa would send the elves into an elvish tailspin. Would they be calling for a new job posting saying, "Elves only, no substance-impaired Santas accepted"? Santa would probably cringe harder than he does when Mrs. Claus waves her baking wand at kitchen disasters. "Oh dear," he would mutter, "that's not the way Christmas magic works." In a bittersweet twist, you might even catch Santa shedding a tear during the Santa Claus. The notion of Tim Allen's character bumbling into the role of Santa helps normalise the struggles of becoming an icon without a user manual. When Santa sees Scott Calvin, who accidentally murders the original Santa, yikes, he can't help but wince. "That's a serious licensing issue," he'd mumble as he reaffirms that accidents happen, and that good intentions maybe aren't always enough, especially with a North Pole delivery schedule. Let's also take a moment to bring in some newer holiday films to the mix. Klaus has rapidly become one of those cult classics that's quietly reinventing what it means to be jolly. With every heartwarming moment that reveals how kindness begets kindness, Santa would undoubtedly appreciate the artistic style and message behind it. Seeing people change through the holiday spirit could coax a few chuckles from him, while he writes heartfelt notes on his notepad of nice deeds and restorative measures. Finally, tucked away in a corner of his extensive holiday viewing list lies a cheeky, guilty pleasure. The Die Hard franchise. Wait, yes. Who can overlook this exhilarating action ride? Let's be honest. Santa is a sucker for a good one-liner while he munches down on his post-Christmas feast. As John McClane slides down the vent shaft on Christmas Eve, we're reminded that sometimes even holiday spirits need a dose of adrenaline. "Now there's a Christmas party," Santa would giggle, probably eyeballing half-empty eggnog cartons while measuring their fleeting contact with the more serious holiday messages. So there you have it, a festive mix of animated adventures, cheeky comedies, and heart-tugging classics that define Santa's secret movie stash. When the surveying of naughty and nice winds down, let's just hope Santa doesn't burn out on the fireplace watching the same films on repeat. Or then again, maybe he would. After all, who wouldn't want to kick back and enjoy the cosy traditions that bring us all a little closer together during the holiday season? After all this hustle and bustle, did anyone ever consider that Santa has serious burnout? This segment focuses on the importance of self-care, possibly leading to an outing with Mrs. Claus rather than downing a pint of cocoa. Let's face it, Christmas is a chaotic mess of empty candy wrappers and Xbox controllers stashed under couches for the sake of a surprise. The elves work around the clock, and who do you think is bearing the stress while simultaneously trying to keep a jolly demeanour? That's right, the big man in red. The sheer amount of cookies this guy consumes might rival a competitive eater's annual quota. Imagine him trying to maintain his Christmas cheer without the good old R&R. So, what does Santa do when he needs a breather? He definitely doesn't hit up a week-long spa retreat littered with cucumber slices on his eyes. Nope, he's sticking to the North Pole where the only relaxation station is a snow-covered sledding hill and a swirling stream of hot chocolate. Have you ever thought about how often he gets stuck in a chimney? That's an upper body workout gone wrong. Perhaps he dreams of unwinding at a tropical resort in the summer, preferably somewhere he can slip into a Hawaiian shirt instead of the heavy red suit. Could you imagine Santa sipping piña coladas by a beach, swapping tales with the locals about how his reindeer got left behind for a winged unicorn named Gerald? Meanwhile, the elves are probably still wrapping gifts and shouting "Truce!" over who gets to be the one to stuff the stockings this year. And let's not even get into how many letters Santa receives. "Dear Santa, I've been good this year," is a nice sentiment. But what about the rest of the demands? Can I have a new dog? A gaming console that charges itself? A life-size statue of my favourite YouTuber? The endless parade of wish lists could send him spiralling into a midlife crisis worse than a dad buying a flashy sports car. There's a reason you never see Santa's reactions to these outlandish requests. He's probably grabbing a protein shake in the back and looking at the calendar thinking, do I have time for a summer vacation in Hawaii lately? As Christmas approaches, Santa's pressure levels soar higher than a reindeer on one too many sugar cookies. Between sleigh testing, gift sorting, and making sure the naughty nice system doesn't break down like a bad internet connection, it's a miracle he doesn't go on a full-blown rampage. Imagine the headlines. Santa goes rogue, takes off with elves to the tropics after finding a misplaced goldfish on a list. That could inspire a new holiday movie where he'd battle stress management strategies instead of El Nino. Meanwhile, the elves wouldn't even bat an eye. Oh, it's just Santa off on another escapade. Wonder if he'll bring back souvenirs this time. Now let's talk about why Mrs. Claus deserves a medal, or at least a holiday of her own. The woman is like a guardian angel, keeping her husband in check while brewing the world's most fragrant cocoa and preparing dozens of cookies for an annual taste test that would make Master Chef contestants weep. One can only imagine how much pressure Santa puts on her as he rationalizes the array of treats by saying he needs to test quality control. It's for the kids, he insists, waving off the calorie count while eyeing the dozen gingerbread cookies with absolute ferocity. But Mrs. Claus knows the truth. He's dangerously close to donut-induced hibernation. We've all seen how the holiday season transforms into a high-pressure situation. Perhaps as Santa's final act before the snowy season creeps in, he takes Mrs. Claus out for a much-needed getaway. Just picture it. Santa and Mrs. Claus taking a vacation somewhere warm, virtually ice-free, where the only snowstorm is a passing thought. in between sun-soaked brunches of tropical fruit. They're talking about everything but Christmas, planning new ways to recharge and revitalise their festivity-making machine. Maybe that's when they consider running an organic, sustainable candy shop, instead of pandering to those sky-high expectations of each Christmas. In essence, we all could learn from Santa's need for a vacation. When the holiday stress approaches, let's not forget to take a step back, breathe, and figure out how to avoid turning into mini Santas around the holiday season. So, here's to hoping the man in the red suit listens, even if it's just while enjoying a fruity drink on a sandy beach, contemplating the meaning of life while sipping something coconut infused. If Santa's got to keep spreading joy, he'd better start with his own. What happens when the elf-sized alcoholic emerges? Explore how holiday parties may surprise you with their rowdiness. We'll delve into the era of Santa's bad guy counterparts and what that entails for our joyful holiday traditions. Picture this: a snow-dusted town square, twinkling lights illuminating the storefronts as carolers sing sweetly. But hold on to your hot cocoa, because sneaking around the corner is an outrageous Santa, red-faced and hooting louder than a party horn at midnight, with a questionable whiskey breath that could rival a leaky barrel. This isn't the cheery guy you'd leave cookies for. Oh no, this is the let's see how many L's I can take in one evening version. You might think Santa's badness is just a myth, a mere punchline designed for holiday parties filled with questionable decisions and enough eggnog to ensure the next day's regret. But here's the kicker. The image of a drunken Santa isn't just something that would cause a polite chuckle at the family gathering. It's rooted in history, especially when we turn our attention to the early traditions of Christmas as an unholy cocktail of merriment, excess, and just a touch of chaos. Back in the day, the holiday season was less about cosy fires and twinkly lights, and more about letting loose like your favourite uncle at Thanksgiving. A festival of excess, if you will. Picture townsfolk drinking mead as they revelled in the solstice festivities when rules were bent, and coziness was swapped for rowdy gatherings where too much liquor and not enough sense led to raucous behaviour. Santa was just another face in the crowd, one not shy about downing a few too many rounds of ale, turning ho 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 into whoa whoa whoa. The modern idea of naughty Santa probably traces back to these wild days when merrymakers replaced piety with debauchery. You've got your wrap-in presents and tacky sweaters, and now Santa is battling for attention against his shady sidekick, Krampus, the horned figure who punishes naughty children. Yes, this guy was the real deal for centuries, terrifying kids enough to make them think twice about misbehaving. If you ever fantasized about starting your own scared straight Christmas program, Krampus would lead the charge, complete with chains and bells that jingle like the neighborhood gossip spiraling out of control. As our beloved figure morphed from a slightly tipsy gift giver to a cultural icon, one must wonder, did the rowdy traditions lead to a small rip in Santa's otherwise jolly fabric? Were the townsfolk pushing back against too much elf magic? Imagine at Facebook live holiday parties featuring delightful mishaps. Someone attempting to sled after too much mulled wine only to crash into a haystack, surely ruining a perfectly good holiday photo op. Or children catching whiffs of something suspicious from Santa's breath and opting for extra broccoli at dinner as they mentally add up the potential gifts he might leave behind. So how do we reconcile this duality? The innocent joy of Christmas against the lurking figure of boozing Santa? Simple. You crank up the holiday spirit but keep your eye out for mischievous antics. You could even suggest a designated sleigh driver because let's face it, no one should be flying reindeer under the influence. That way, the only thing soaring high is your holiday spirit, not a tipsy Santa ending up in the neighbour's chimney and scaring the crud out of the family chihuahua. But wait. We can't overlook Santa Gone's bad as simply a figure of humour. It's a necessary reminder that the holiday season can get out of hand, turning even the most serious celebrant into a snowballing bundle of fun and chaos. Amid all the bells and whistles, we often forget to take it easy, leading to unexpected Christmas mishaps that make for great stories, but might require extra gifts to settle the score. Ultimately, when Santa's alter ego emerges from the fluff with mischief etched upon his red cheeks, we're left with an essential question. How do we embrace the spirit of Santa without letting the holiday cheer devolve into comedic chaos? Do we hide the whiskey-laden eggnog? Or are we secretly wishing that one cousin will cement their place as the family unofficial Santa? The one whose mishaps give us something to laugh about when the winter winds are howling? The answer might just lie somewhere between unwanted holiday guests and incredulity at how we survived another year. Cheers to a ho-ho-ho fighting to stay afloat. In this final whimsical segment, we'll recap every ridiculous and heartwarming aspect of Santa Claus in the 20th and 21st centuries. Was his legacy always intended to be this chaotic, sprinkled with laughter, love, and the beauty of it all? You bet. Cue the sentimental music and warmly lit backdrops as we explore just how the jolly man in red has evolved over the decades, embodying everything from classic childhood magic to the secret sauce that carries our holiday spirits like a sleigh over glistening snow. First off, let's tackle those iconic images of Santa that began to emerge in the 1930s, thanks in part to Coca Cola. Unbeknownst to the general public, a couple of sugar-soaked ad executives were likely responsible for more than a few children believing in Santa's ability to gobble down milk and cookies as easily as we devour chocolate cake on someone else's birthday. Artists like Haddon Sundblom presented Santa as a jolly, portly fellow with rosy cheeks and a heartwarming laugh, as if he were the kind of grandpa who would sneak you an extra gummy bear when your parents weren't looking. But let's face it, if Santa were real, he'd be putting those cookies into some serious training before a long night of gift-giving, or at the very least dodging the relentless "who ate the last cookie" questioning from these little detectives. You see, Santa quickly transitioned into more than just a gift bringer. He became our fondest personality of holiday cheer. Who else could effortlessly glide across rooftops, slide down chimneys, and invoke a sense of collective joy that could probably bring world peace, at least until the holiday leftovers run out? And speaking of leftovers, have we appreciated how he's been depicted as a glorious, soft-bellied, beard-flavoured connoisseur of not just cookies, but holiday feasts as well? Somewhere between the pint of eggnog and the succulent goose that mysteriously disappears when no one's looking, Santa became synonymous with indulgence, a true role model for every food lover at the holiday table. Additionally, let's not forget the time when he unassumingly endorsed eating whatever you want for a month by simply displaying that joy of life in advertising campaigns. Fast forward to the 21st century, where technology collided with classic tradition. Santa has had to adapt as we're all acutely aware of our obsession with selfies and social media hashtags. Enter the Instagram Santa. Can you imagine Santa navigating a world filled with hashtags like just jolly and jammed or Sleestagram? Little Timmy posting his Santa-approved gaming console on Facebook, while Aunt Gertrude unleashes her critiques about the good old days when Santa gave real toys. In this whirlpool of digital interaction, Santa is more than a magical figure. He's a bona fide celebrity. Imagine him swiping through Tinder. Swipe left if you don't like cookies. Talk about a mismanaged sleigh ride of romance. However, amidst all this jolliness, what about Santa's deeper legacy? He serves as a reminder of kindness, compassion, and generosity. He transcends cultural barriers and unites families, children, and the young at heart. It's about more than just the delights spilling from that red sack. It's the spirit of giving that sticks around long after the holiday wrappings have been thrown away. Want to know what's even more heartwarming? The countless charities, food drives, and initiatives inspired by the Santa effect. It's hard not to raise a toast of cheer to that imaginary patron saint of giving, one who proactively encourages us to share compassion and love. So as Santa continues to evolve, from soda-slinging advertising icon to a beacon of hope, let's take a moment to appreciate the various ways he reflects our pursuits of joy, fellowship, and laughter. Because let's face it, the true legacy of Santa is woven through the spirit of connection that he inspires, transforming our everyday lives into moments of warmth that resemble a cozy winter escape. Whether it's watching classic movies, singing those catchy carols, or indulging in eggnog mustaches at parties, Santa delivers joy that fills our hearts like a well-worn plushie, stuffed with clear glitter. It always shines bright. So here's to Santa, the ultimate gift of laughter and light. For as long as there are cookies on plates, stockings hung with care, and children believing in magic, he will forever be our joyous icon, a fluffy beacon urging us to rediscover the delights tucked away in the spirit of giving. Thank you, Santa, for reminding us to embrace our inner children, because the world definitely needs that unwavering merriment and kindness now more than ever.